Hello again, everybody. This is Travis with the Real Estate and Construction Boss Association. I want to thank you for taking the time out to watch today's interview. Today we're talking with David Mastovich, who is the president at Mass Solutions. And I had the chance of meeting David. Actually, we connected through LinkedIn a few weeks ago. We've just kind of sparked up the conversation, talked a few times on the phone. But David's programs are fantastic, and they really increase his clients' awareness about market share and creating personal and professional brands that increase your credibility and exposure in the marketplace and help you become a more valuable asset to your customers. So I wanted to invite him here today to share some of his information. So David, thanks so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I always ask this question of everybody we interview on the Boss site. So, there was obviously a need that you identified in the marketplace that needed to be filled with your service. So can you give us a little bit of background about where you were and what need you identified and how your service fills that need?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't want to go too far back and bore you, but my career started out, and throughout my career, I did a lot of turnarounds of companies or was brought in to help develop new divisions of large companies. And as I did that, what I found was that I was constantly trying to build the messaging, also build the communications department, create the marketing and branding activities, and lead and manage that. And what I found was within large companies and small, you found that, let's take the large company first, you found that communications department, marketing department, advertising, PR, and sales, they often didn't communicate as well as they needed to. And so I saw that you needed to have what we believe is called integrated marketing, which ties all of those together so that you're maximizing every dollar and every activity. Mm-hmm. At a smaller company, you see something different. You'll see one or two people wearing multiple hats, and the same thing happens. They aren't able to integrate it because they think they're putting on their PR hat or their sales hat. Sure. So really it falls under the guise of integrated marketing, and that's really what led me to start Mass Solutions. And it's helped us to grow because we're meeting a need for clients, as you said.
Yeah, and we work with a lot of real estate and construction business owner types. And one of the things that I coach a lot about is kind of cross-channel marketing. And we may be saying the same thing where, you got to hit people with multiple different campaigns from email to, not everybody likes to get a text. Not everybody likes to talk on the phone. Not everybody likes to read your articles or read or visit your videos on YouTube. So are you saying something very similar with your integrated marketing approach?
Yes, absolutely. The first thing that Mass Solutions does is we utilize the equivalent of a GPS for marketing, and we call it our CPS, a customer positioning system. And why that's critical, Travis, is you first have to define those target audience that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So that you know that you have multiple target audiences. Everybody has multiple ones. Okay, that's not rocket science. However, when you drill down into those target markets, that's something most people don't do. Even if they claim they do, they don't. I work for an $8 billion healthcare system, and we often talk about how much we drill down into those target markets. But in reality, until we really built a true integrated marketing program, we weren't drilling down and slicing and dicing. Once you drill down into those target markets, yes, you hit the nail on the head. You have to have integrated marketing with the same messaging to a degree across mediums. Now, what do I mean by to a degree? Well, UPMC Health System had hospitals, doctors, and a health insurance plan. Our slogan was choose your health care as if your life depended on it. And we're building our brand. But when we were selling the health insurance product, we wouldn't go out to employers and say, hey, choose your health care as if your life depended on it. We said, single-digit rate increases for back-to-back-to-back years. Now, that resonated with a CFO or a CEO of a construction company or a real estate company. So your messaging is still tied together, but it's tweaked slightly based on the target market. But yes, to your original point, integrating that messaging and being consistent is huge.
Yeah. So if I am let's say a commercial real estate broker, and my target audience, maybe I have a couple of different target audiences. I work with CPAs, I work with technology companies, and maybe I'm even doing a little healthcare. I should really focus on creating campaigns that are specific to each one of those niches, right? I mean, as opposed to saying, here's some overall strategies that encompass business in general. You're saying this affects the CPA.
Yes.
Something that's beneficial to them as opposed to just an overall generic.
Your earlier point was true, is that CPA thinks different than that other target market. So each target market thinks differently, so you have to apply it to make it about them. And when we talk about messaging, we have our 8 messaging musts, of which we'll get into in another interview, but one of them is making it about them. So you take a look at each of those target markets, and they want different things. You have the CPA is going to think, obviously, much more quantitatively than another consumer. Another consumer might think much more emotionally. So you have to craft that message, but still have some consistency so you can maintain the consistency of the brand across each of those mediums.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a powerful strategy right there. Just if people listen to nothing else than that, that's worth listening to and taking note of too. Action's all about, it's all about the action. It's not just listening to the stuff.
Yes.
The other thing that we wanted to share is your knowledge about creating a brand, both personal and professional, whether it be online or offline, and whatever you do. So can you tell us, what is it about creating a brand that's so powerful, and then how can people create a brand if they don't have one today?
When you think about branding, just take any product or service that you buy and think of who the industry leader is that you know, and then there are tons of other people that you don't know. One example that stands the test of time is there's Pepsi, Coke, and Royal Crown. Well, in the 70s and the 80s, Royal Crown won many taste tests, but most people don't think of Royal Crown, and they don't have much market share. In fact, they were purchased by one of the biggies years later. But the point is, it was because the brand Coke meant something to us, and Pepsi meant something to us. One of the famous marketing stories is in '85 when Coke went and did the new Coke, people were angry because it meant so much to them as a product. Well, that's what branding's all about, is making an emotional impact, making it memorable so that people have a feeling towards your brand. Now, to get to that point, we tell people this. We say, what's the big idea? And when we talk about that, we're playing off of that phrase, what's the big idea? But what we really are saying is you have to narrow down the essence of what you personally are, what your personal brand is, and what your company's brand is. Both of those need to be branded down into one sentence. What's the big idea? I told you, UPMC, choose your healthcare as if your life depended on it.
Yeah.
What were we doing? We were playing off of an emotion, and that emotion was fear. But we had to, because we were going out into 27 counties to try and expand that brand. And each of those counties had 2 or 3 or 4 small hospitals. And we wanted you to know that choose your healthcare as if your life depended on it. Come to a UPMC hospital, and we played off of fear. So each one plays off of a different emotion. Coke and McDonald's are playing off of happiness and joy. Sometimes you have to play off of fear. I didn't really want to have to play off of fear, but that was the truth of what the market needed to hear. So what's the big idea? Ask yourself that first, and then you get off to the right start.
Cool. Yeah. Probably a mistake that a lot of small business owners make is they just make it up, right? I mean, there is no science behind why you have a particular brand. They just say, "Oh, this is just how it happened. This is what I created." So, getting more scientific with it is what I'm hearing you say. Being specific.
Yes. We have a client that we're working with now, and they're good people, and they're successful at their operational side. One of their weaknesses and why they came to Mass Solutions, they didn't know the answer, and they didn't know what the problem was or the answer. They came to us and said, our marketing is not resonating. Well, what is happening is they have multiple phrases that they like to use and that they talk about themselves with. And that's okay in a selling situation. When you and I are talking like this, I can tell you all kinds of stuff about Mass Solutions to try and make my point. But when I'm doing it with social media, with Twitter, with a billboard, with a print ad, a direct mail piece, I only have a few seconds. So it has to be something like Avis, we try harder, because when you start uttering that, and that's what their problem was, we came back to them and said, look, on this particular direct mail piece, this postcard, you have 3 phrases. It's almost impossible for me as a customer, even if I want to buy you, to remember one of those phrases, let alone 3. So when you said, do they wing it? That's what they do. They don't necessarily wing the one phrase. Their problem is they don't have message consistency. They have message creep. We talk about message creep a lot, and that is similar to your project management creep that your real estate clients would relate to, or construction companies. The creep on the message creep is you have too many phrases, too many things you're trying to convey.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm laughing because it resonates with me personally too at times. So, okay. So the other thing that I'm really intrigued by is you're telling story. You're really good at telling stories, and I know that that's one of the things you coach your clients on. So I believe that everyone that's listening to the interview here understands the importance of telling stories. But can you, in your own words, tell us why it's so important?
Yes, because we as humans process that better. We remember stories. I told you about the new Coke story. Well, a lot of people, if they're age anywhere from 40 to 80, remembers that new Coke debacle. All you have to say is the new Coke, that phrase, because it's a story that someone can remember back to that year's, all the controversy and the stories, and it was on Oprah and Letterman, they're making fun of it because it's a story that can resonate. So you have to think in those terms and make that story compelling. But here's the thing we always say. We say your Seinfeld story is better than you think. And we say this, your story that you think is nothing is actually a good story.
Yeah.
And we take your story about nothing. It isn't about nothing. You live it every day. So some of the things that you're accomplishing at your company, Travis, you think are everyday things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you talk to people on my team and we're professional storytellers, we might say, Travis, what you did to get to this point in your career is pretty awesome. You're a young guy. You've already had a couple companies. You're doing Skype interviews. You're on this. You're on that. That's a great story.
Yeah.
And we start coming back to that and we break it down. We say, Travis, what made you do this? And all of a sudden, your story relates back to you met someone who influenced you. And that story is memorable. People are going to remember that. You know, I often tell the story that when I was a teenager, I started working in the media, and that's what led to this career that I have. I was on the radio, I was doing stringer work, covering sports on the newspaper, and did some TV. That's what led me to get the zest for storytelling that I have today. You might remember that about me. You might remember that I was a DJ. You might remember that I used to have a company that played weddings. Okay, you'll remember that more than most of my interview, unfortunately. But that's because, not any fault of you, that's because it's a story. It resonates.
And is that why? And this is what I kind of coach people on as well, is that your blog is a great place for you to tell your story. So it doesn't need to be your blog doesn't need to be all about sales and product information, but it's a place for you to share who you are and tell a story, and then that's where you drive your clients to. Correct?
That lets them know that you are a human. That lets them know that you're a person. And I think that if you're able to do that and tie that into your business, a few years ago I blogged from the beach a story about how awesome the marketing that's going on while you're laying on that beach. When you see the plane fly by with the long-tailed message that tells you to go get drinks here or get the buffet there, and then you watch the person who's selling you the chairs and the tents. That's all marketing that's going on. Well, I blogged that, and I got such a response from that blog because people all said, yeah, I go to the beach and see exactly what you're saying. I never really thought of it as marketing that way. So your blog is your chance to say who you are and let people know that there's more to you than just the business guy, but tie it back a little bit to your business, and that's a home run.
Man, awesome stuff, David. I would encourage everybody who is listening to this to contact David, and we've included the link to his website right below the interview here, along with his LinkedIn bio. So connect with him on LinkedIn, give him a call. He's a very accessible guy. He'll just answer questions for you about your business and how you can integrate some of these strategies that we've talked about this morning. So, David, thanks again for taking the time to do this.
Offer to any of your viewers that calls or emails me, I will give them a free hour of consultation of my time to listen, hear their story, and they can take and use the feedback however they want, free of charge.
Awesome. Now, take him up on that, everyone. That's just a phenomenal offer, and I've learned a lot this morning. So thank you, David. Personally, for me, I've learned a lot. So this is great. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your morning or your afternoon to watch our interview with David Mastovich, and feel free to reach out to him. If you want to see more interviews, just go ahead and leave your email address and your name in the box below this video as well, and we'll send you the links whenever we post brand new interviews. So thanks again, and have a great day. Thanks.